The UES diplomacy drifted through the outer reaches of the Orion Arm, its sleek hull reflecting distant starlight. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's observation window, her dark eyes fixed on the approaching Nexari vessel. The alien ship's bioorganic architecture made it look more like a floating coral reef than a spacecraft, its surface rippling with bioluminescent patterns that might have been beautiful under different circumstances. "They're hailing us again, Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his communications station. "Same message as before." Chen nodded, her expression neutral despite the growing tension in her shoulders. The Nexari message had been clear enough the first time. Surrender your vessel or be destroyed. Standard protocol for first contact situations didn't include immediate threats of violence, but the Nexari clearly operated under different rules. "Send our response one more time," Chen ordered. "Remind them that we are a diplomatic vessel operating under Terran Space Command Authority, and any hostile action will be met with appropriate force." The bridge crew exchanged knowing glances. In the 15 years since humanity had joined the galactic community, appropriate force had become something of an inside joke among human military personnel. What humans considered appropriate, most other species viewed as devastating overkill. The Nexari ship's response came in the form of a plasma burst that illuminated space between the vessels. The shot went wide, clearly intended as a warning. "Well," Chen sighed, "they've made their choice." She turned to her tactical officer. "Lieutenant Palmer, activate the defense grid. Standard containment protocol." Palmer's fingers danced across his console. "Defense grid online, Captain. Should I ready the Omega packets?" "Not yet. Let's see if they're willing to be reasonable first." Chen settled into her command chair, her posture relaxed despite the situation. "Mr. Rodriguez, open a channel to their vessel." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the Nexari commander. The alien's crystalline exoskeleton caught the light from their bridge, creating rainbow refractions across their segmented body. Multiple compound eyes focused on Chen with what might have been contempt. "This is your final warning, human vessel." The Nexari's translated voice crackled through the speakers. "Your species is unknown to us, but your ship has entered our claimed space. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated according to our traditions of conquest." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Diplomacy. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. This sector was registered with the Galactic Council as a free travel zone 3 standard cycles ago. We are here on a diplomatic mission and have no hostile intent. However," she leaned forward slightly, "if you fire upon this vessel again, we will be forced to respond. I strongly suggest you review the data packet we sent regarding humanity's military doctrine." The Nexari commander's crystalline form sparkled with what might have been amusement. "We have reviewed your data, Captain. Your vessel is alone, outgunned, and far from any support. Our scans show minimal weapon systems. Your threats are meaningless." "Minimal weapon systems," Chen repeated, glancing at Palmer with raised eyebrows. The tactical officer struggled to suppress a grin. The Nexari ship fired again, this time striking the diplomacy shields. The impact was absorbed without so much as a flicker in the bridge's lighting. "Right." Chen straightened in her chair. "Lieutenant Palmer, they've had their chance. Activate Defense Protocol 3. "Defense Protocol 3, aye, Captain." Palmer's fingers moved across his console with practiced efficiency. Target locked. The Nexari commander's image remained on the view screen, allowing Chen to watch his confusion spread across their alien features. Their ship's sensors would be detecting something impossible, a massive energy surge from a vessel that had appeared nearly defenseless moments ago. "What deception is this?" the Nexari demanded. "Our scans showed." "Your scans showed exactly what we wanted them to show," Chen interrupted. "Standard human protocol. We don't advertise our capabilities until we need them. I'm going to give you one last chance to stand down and open diplomatic channels. Otherwise, this conversation is going to become very one-sided." The Nexari commander's crystalline form flashed with patterns that the translation software interpreted as a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You dare threaten us? We are the Nexari Dominion. We do not bow to threats from unknown species in inferior vessels." Chen sighed and nodded to Palmer. "Show them inferior." The diplomacy's defense grid activated fully, revealing arrays of weapon systems that had been hidden beneath seemingly decorative hull plating. Quantum torpedo launchers emerged from recessed bays, while metamaterial panels shifted to expose banks of plasma accelerators that made the Nexari's weapons look like children's toys. "By the eternal crystal," the Nexari commander breathed, their translator struggling to convey their shock. "This is impossible. Your ship, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing," Chen offered. "That's an old human expression. We find it's better to avoid showing all our cards at once. Keeps situations like this more manageable." The Nexari vessel attempted to power up its weapons, but the diplomacy's systems had already locked onto every critical system on their ship. Before they could fire, precision strikes from the human vessel's weapons disabled their offensive capabilities without causing any casualties. "What you see now," Chen continued as the Nexari commander stared in disbelief at their ship's failing systems, "is actually just our diplomatic vessel's standard loadout. Would you like to see what we consider a warship?" The Nexari's crystalline form dimmed slightly. You could have destroyed us." "We could have," Chen agreed. "But that wouldn't have been diplomatic, would it? Now, shall we discuss that free travel zone agreement like civilized beings?" The silence that followed was broken only by the quiet hum of the diplomacy systems powering down to standby mode. The Nexari commander's form shifted through various colors before settling on a subdued blue tone that the translation software suggested indicated acquiescence. "Perhaps," the Nexari commander said slowly, "we should review that data packet again. More thoroughly this time." Chen smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea. Lieutenant Rodriguez, please send them the complete briefing on human diplomatic protocols, including the appendices on our military response doctrine. I have a feeling they'll find it educational." As the data transfer began, Chen couldn't help but reflect on how typical this encounter had been. Every new species humanity encountered seemed to go through the same process: underestimation, shock, and finally, a healthy respect for humanity's approach to preparedness. It wasn't that humans were naturally aggressive. They simply believed in being ready for any possibility. The Nexari would learn, just as others had before them, that what they considered overkill, humanity called Tuesday. High Commander Zurich stood before the Nexari War Council, his crystalline form pulsing with barely contained fury as he presented the sensor logs from the encounter with the human vessel. The chamber's bioorganic walls absorbed and reflected his agitation, sending ripples of crimson through the living architecture. This single diplomatic vessel, he gestured to the holographic display, carried enough firepower to disable a Dominion warship without causing a single casualty. Their technology isn't just advanced, it's beyond anything our intelligence suggested possible for their level of development. The council members' crystalline forms shifted through various hues as they processed this information. First, Speaker Villaura's voice cut through the murmurs, her tone sharp as fractured diamond. "And yet you propose we launch an assault on their colony world. After this demonstration of their capabilities." Precisely because of this demonstration, Zyrix's form pulsed with conviction. "They caught us unprepared once. It will not happen again. We've analyzed their weapons, their tactics. The humans rely on deception and overwhelming force, but now we know what to expect." The holographic display shifted to show the human colony of New Eden, a terraformed world near the border of Nexari space. Strategic markers highlighted defensive installations, population centers, and infrastructure nodes. Their colony is isolated, days away from the nearest human military response force. "We will strike with overwhelming force. The entire Third Fleet. No deception, no diplomatic vessel this time." Just pure, unstoppable Nexari military might. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled in. First Speaker Villar's crystalline form dimmed thoughtfully. And if we are wrong? If they are more prepared than we assume? Impossible, Xerix declared. We've monitored their colony for weeks. Their orbital defenses are minimal. Their ground forces limited. They rely on their reputation and hidden capabilities to deter attacks. But we are the Nexari Dominion. We will not be deterred by shadows and tricks. 3 days later, Xerix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crystal Ascendant, as the Third Fleet dropped out of hyperspace near New Eden. 40 warships, the pride of the Dominion, their bioorganic hulls gleaming with battle readiness. The human colony hung in space before them, seemingly defenseless. Multiple contacts, his sensor officer called out. Human vessels decloaking. Everywhere. Xerix's form flashed with shock as ships materialized around his fleet. Not the hidden weapons of a single vessel this time, but an entire battle group that had somehow remained completely invisible to Nexari sensors. The humans had known they were coming. Incoming transmission. The communications officer reported, their crystalline form vibrating with anxiety. The holographic display activated, showing a human admiral whose calm expression belied the situation's gravity. This is Admiral Helena Martins of the Terran Defense Force. I see you decided to ignore Captain Chen's warnings about reviewing our military doctrine thoroughly. Xerix's form pulsed with defiance. You cannot hope to match our numbers. The Third Fleet has already been surrounded and targeted. Martinez interrupted. Your bioorganic ships are impressive, but they have a fatal flaw. They're alive. And living things show up beautifully on our quantum bioscanners. We've had weapons locked on your vital systems since before you dropped out of hyperspace. You're bluffing, Xerix declared, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Our shields, a series of precise strikes from the human vessels, demonstrated exactly how ineffective those shields were against weapons they'd never been designed to stop. Key systems across multiple Nexari ships went dark simultaneously, their bioorganic hulls spasming as carefully targeted electromagnetic pulses disrupted their neural networks. That was a warning shot, Martinez continued. The next demonstration will be considerably less gentle. You see what you're calling overwhelming force. We call it Tuesday. Would you like to see what we consider overwhelming? As if in answer to her question, space itself seemed to tear open as massive hyperspace ruptures appeared around the battlefield. Through them came more human ships, not dozens, but hundreds. Each vessel bristled with weapons that made the Third Fleet's armament look primitive by comparison. This, Martinez gestured to the arriving reinforcements, is the actual Terran Defense Force. What you've seen so far was just our advanced scout group. Would you like to continue this engagement, or should we discuss the terms of your withdrawal from this sector? Xerix's crystalline form dimmed to nearly transparent as the full implications of his miscalculation became clear. The humans hadn't just prepared for an attack. They'd anticipated it, planned for it, and turned it into an opportunity to demonstrate exactly why their reputation for overwhelming force was well earned. The Third Fleet will stand down, he managed, his translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of defeat in his voice. Excellent choice, Martinez nodded. And since you're here, perhaps we can schedule those diplomatic talks your species was so eager to avoid. I believe we have some territorial boundaries to discuss. As Xerix watched his mighty fleet power down their weapons, surrounded by human vessels that could have destroyed them at any moment, he finally understood. The humans hadn't been bluffing about their capabilities, nor had they been exaggerating their willingness to use them. What his people had dismissed as overkill was simply their standard operating procedure, because in humanity's experience, being overprepared was far better than being surprised. The Galactic Council's emergency session chamber hummed with nervous energy as representatives from 24 spacefaring civilizations gathered to discuss the human response to the Nexari incursion. The massive amphitheater, normally a model of diplomatic decorum, buzzed with worried conversations in hundreds of languages. Ambassador Lyra Tizen of the Alderaan Consensus stood at the central podium, her ethereal form wavering like smoke in sunlight as she addressed the assembly. The holographic displays behind her showed detailed footage of the human fleet's emergence around New Eden. "Let us be clear about what we witnessed," her melodic voice carried across the chamber. "The humans didn't just repel an invasion force. They orchestrated an elaborate trap, using an entire colony as bait, to deliver what they called a diplomatic message." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices until Speaker Solith of the Unified Worlds banged his gravitational gavel, restoring order. His crystalline form, similar to but more refined than the Nexari, sparkled with concern. "The human representative will now address the council," he announced, gesturing to the figure who had been waiting patiently in the shadows. Dr. Eleanor Wright, Earth's chief xenodiplomat, approached the podium with measured steps. Her gray hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her formal diplomatic robes rustling softly as she moved. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent decades explaining humanity to the galaxy. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice clear and steady, "I understand your concerns. From your perspective, our response to the Nexari incursion might seem excessive. Excessive." The Moravian delegate's tentacles writhed in agitation. "You positioned an entire battle fleet around a colony on the mere possibility of attack. The resources involved, the planning required, it's unprecedented." Wright smiled, though there was little warmth in it. "Is it? Let me share something with you about human history." She gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show Earth. "For most of our development, we lived in constant preparation for war. Not because we wanted conflict, but because we learned, painfully, that the cost of being unprepared was too high." The display changed again, showing various human military installations across their territory. "What you call excessive, we call prudent planning. The fleet that surprised the Nexari, that was our standard defensive positioning, not a special arrangement. We maintained similar force levels around all our colonies." A murmur of shock rippled through the chamber. The Scythian representative, their binary forms synchronizing in distress, spoke next. "You're telling us that level of military presence is normal for humans?" "Indeed," Wright nodded. "Just as we maintain multiple redundant systems in our spacecraft, multiple backups of crucial data, and multiple contingency plans for any given situation. It's not paranoia, it's preparation." The holographic display shifted to show the confrontation with the Nexari fleet from multiple angles. The Nexari made 3 critical mistakes. First, they assumed our diplomatic vessel's capabilities were representative of our standard technology. Second, they thought our colony's visible defenses were its only defenses. And third, she paused, making eye contact with various representatives. They believed that what they saw as overwhelming force would be overwhelming to us. But why? The Alderaan ambassador's form flickered with confusion. Why maintain such extensive military presence when there was no clear threat? Wright's expression softened slightly. "Because in human history, the clearest threat is the one you don't see coming. We learned that lesson through centuries of conflict on our homeworld. When we reached the stars, we promised ourselves we wouldn't need to learn it again." She gestured, and the display showed various human colonies, each with their hidden layers of defense. "What you're seeing isn't aggression, it's insurance. Every fleet, every weapons system, every contingency plan exists not because we want to use them, but because we never want to be in a position where we need them and don't have them." The Moravian delegate's tentacles waved dismissively. "And the cost? The resources that could be used for peaceful development. What's the cost of losing a colony?" Wright countered. "Of watching your people die because you weren't prepared. We've run the calculations, studied the probabilities. In human terms, the cost of maintaining these forces is far less than the potential cost of not having them." She turned to face the Nexari representative, who had been silent throughout the proceedings. The Nexari learned something valuable about humanity. We don't believe in proportional response because we don't believe in allowing situations to reach the point where response is necessary. Prevention is our response. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Wright continued, her voice carrying clearly in the stillness. Some of you may see our methods as excessive. That's your right. But understand this. Humanity didn't survive and thrive by meeting threats at their level. We survived by being so thoroughly prepared that most threats never materialize. She gestured one final time, and the display showed the Nexari fleet's peaceful withdrawal from human space. This wasn't a victory in human terms. This was routine operational security. The Nexari attacked one of our worlds, and in doing so, they learned what every potential adversary should understand. Humans don't believe in fighting fair. We believe in fighting smart, fighting prepared, and preferably not having to fight at all. The private chamber of the Galactic Council's inner circle bore little resemblance to the grand amphitheater where Dr. Wright had delivered her address. Here, in a room barely large enough for its occupants, the real decisions would be made. 7 beings, representing the most influential species in known space, gathered around a table of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. First Speaker Xolith's crystalline form caught and reflected the table's glow as he addressed his peers. The humans have given us much to consider. Their approach to security is unprecedented in galactic history. Unprecedented. Supreme Commander Vex of the Moravian Confederation coiled his tentacles in agitation. It's borderline hostile. No species maintains that level of military readiness without aggressive intent. Ambassador Lyra Tizen's smoky form rippled thoughtfully. Perhaps that's precisely why we've never seen it before. We're judging human actions by non-human standards. The holographic display at the table's center activated, showing footage from various human historical archives. Scenes of warfare, devastation, and rebuilding played out in rapid succession. Look at their history, Lyra continued. While most of our species were fighting over territory or resources, humans were regularly fighting for survival, against nature, against each other, against extinction-level events. They developed a unique perspective on threat assessment. The Zithian representative, a dual-formed being named Unity and Division, synchronized their binary voices. Their preparation seems excessive because we've never experienced their level of constant existential threat. For humans, overprepared is their baseline. That doesn't make it less dangerous, Vex insisted. A species that maintains that level of military power, that treats overwhelming force as standard procedure, they're a threat to galactic stability. High Archon Zilla of the Sentinel Collective raised a crystalline appendage, her ancient form glowing with inner wisdom. Are they? In the 50 years since humans joined the galactic community, how many unprovoked aggressive actions have they taken? Silence fell over the chamber as the council members considered this. The holographic display shifted to show statistics of human diplomatic and military encounters. None, Xolith admitted reluctantly. They've defended their territories, responded to threats, but never initiated conflict. Even the Nexari incident, they could have destroyed the entire fleet, but chose demonstration over destruction. Precisely, Zilla's form pulsed with approval. What we're seeing isn't aggression. It's trauma response on a species-wide scale. Humans prepare for the worst, not because they want it to happen, but because they've learned through bitter experience that anything can happen. The display changed again, showing human colony worlds. Each one was a testament to their dual nature. Beautiful cities and settlements surrounded by layers of hidden defenses, peaceful communities living under the watchful eye of cloaked warships. They're not trying to intimidate, Lyra observed. They're trying to prevent what they see as inevitable conflict. Every show of force is designed to make actual force unnecessary. Unity in Division's forms shifted in synchronized thought. Perhaps we should be less concerned about their capabilities and more interested in learning from their perspective. Their approach, while extreme by our standards, has proven remarkably effective at maintaining peace. Peace through overwhelming deterrence, Vex noted, his tentacles relaxing slightly. It's not entirely without merit, viewed from their historical context. High Archean Zilla's form brightened. Then perhaps that's our path forward. Instead of trying to change human behavior to match our expectations, we should adapt our understanding to include their perspective. First Speaker Xolith raised his crystalline form to its full height. I propose a formal study of human military doctrine, not as a potential threat, but as an alternative approach to galactic security. Their methods may be extreme, but their results are undeniable. The holographic display showed the aftermath of the Nexeri incident, not just the withdrawal of their fleet, but the subsequent peace negotiations, the established boundaries, the stable diplomatic relations that followed. The humans have a saying, Lyra added, peace through strength. We've always interpreted it as a justification for military buildup, but perhaps we've misunderstood. For humans, strength isn't just about military power. It's about being so well prepared that conflict becomes unnecessary. And if conflict does come, Vex asked, though his tone had lost its earlier hostility, then they ensure it's brief, decisive, and preferably without casualties. Zilla responded. Their goal isn't to fight. It's to be so overwhelmingly prepared that fighting becomes pointless. The council members sat in contemplative silence, watching the holographic display cycle through images of human achievements, their colonies, their ships, their technological advances. Each was a testament to a species that had learned to thrive not despite their paranoid preparation, but because of it. Perhaps, Solith said finally, what we've been seeing as dangerous over-preparation is actually the most effective path to peace we've yet encountered in galactic history. The question now is, are we prepared to accept that our traditional approaches to security might not be the only valid ones? One standard galactic year after the Nexeri incident, the observation deck of the Terran embassy on Galactic Central hummed with quiet conversation. Through the vast transparent panels, the glittering expanse of the galaxy's diplomatic heart spread out below, a testament to cooperation among the stars. High Commander Xerix of the Nexeri Dominion stood beside Dr. Eleanor Wright, their contrasting forms reflected in the crystalline window. I still don't fully understand, Xerix admitted, his crystalline form shifting through thoughtful hues. Your species maintains enough firepower to wage war across multiple sectors, yet you spend most of your resources trying to avoid using it. Wright smiled, the expression gentle but knowing. Tell me, Commander, why do you wear armor? For protection, of course. Xerix's form pulsed with mild confusion at the apparent non sequitur. And do you wear it expecting to be attacked, or hoping to prevent the attack in the first place? Understanding flickered through Xerix's crystalline structure. Both, I suppose. The presence of armor often prevents the need for its use. Exactly, Wright nodded, turning to face the vast cityscape below. Humanity learned long ago that the best defense isn't just being prepared for an attack. It's being so thoroughly prepared that potential attackers reconsider their options. What you saw at New Eden wasn't just military might. It was a demonstration of our fundamental philosophy. The door chimed, admitting Ambassador Lyra Tizen and Supreme Commander Vex, who had been instrumental in reshaping the Council's approach to human military doctrine. Lyra's smoky form drifted forward, carrying a data crystal that pulsed with stored information. The Council has finished its analysis of human defensive protocols, she announced. The results are enlightening. Vex's tentacles moved in patterns of scholarly interest. Your species has effectively rewritten the book on galactic security. The concept of peace through overwhelming preparation rather than overwhelming force. It's revolutionary. Not revolutionary, Wright corrected gently. Necessary. Humanity didn't develop these protocols because we wanted to. We developed them because we had to. The holographic display activated, showing various human colonies across the galaxy. Each one was a perfect blend of civilian life and military readiness, of peaceful existence and constant vigilance. Look at any human settlement, Wright gestured to the display. You'll find schools next to shield generators, hospitals with hidden bunkers, parks that can convert to emergency shelters. Every piece of infrastructure serves multiple purposes. Every system has redundancies. Every peaceful installation has defensive capabilities. Your entire civilization is built on the principle of being prepared for the worst while hoping for the best, Lyra observed, her form rippling with understanding. Because we've seen the worst, Wright's voice carried the weight of human history. We face extinction-level events, global wars, natural disasters that nearly wiped us out. Each time, we survived not by being the strongest, but by being the most prepared. Xerxes' form dimmed slightly. When we attacked your colony, we thought we were facing a weak point in human defense. Instead, you found out why humans don't have weak points, Vex finished. Because you've learned that weak points get people killed. Wright nodded. The Nexari incident taught the galaxy something important about humanity. What you see as overwhelming force, we see as basic precaution. What you consider overkill, we consider necessary preparation. The display shifted to show the aftermath of the Nexari confrontation, not the military standoff, but the diplomatic relations that followed. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, mutual defense pacts. The true power of human preparation isn't in our weapons or our fleets, Wright continued. It's in the fact that we rarely need to use them, because when you're truly prepared for anything, you've already prevented most problems before they begin. Lyra's form brightened with sudden insight. That's why your species invests so heavily in what we thought was excessive military power, because you see it as an investment in peace. Precisely, Wright smiled. The most effective defense isn't the one that wins the battle. It's the one that prevents the battle from ever happening. Every warship we build, every defense system we install, every contingency plan we prepare, they're not tools of war. They're tools of peace, ensuring that conflict remains an unattractive option. The gathered representatives watched as the holographic display showed scenes from across human space, colonies thriving, trade flourishing, peace prevailing. Not because humanity was peaceful by nature, but because they had made peace the most practical option. Perhaps, Xerxes' form pulsed with newfound respect. What we once saw as human paranoia is actually the highest form of wisdom. You prepare for war not because you want it, but because we want to make absolutely certain we never need to fight it. Wright finished. That's the paradox of human preparation. We maintain overwhelming force precisely because we never want to use it. As the sun set over Galactic Central, casting the chamber in ethereal light, the representatives of various species contemplated this new understanding of humanity. They had come seeking to understand what they thought was a dangerous anomaly in galactic society. Instead, they had found a species that had turned preparation itself into an art form, transforming the very concept of peace from an ideal into a practical reality. The galaxy was changing, adapting to this new paradigm. And in the end, humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization might not be their technology or their military might, but their fundamental understanding that true peace comes not from the absence of strength, but from the presence of such overwhelming preparation that conflict becomes unthinkable.